A beautiful morning. Thank you so much for always being tuned in to TV47. My name is Linda Alela, and it's now time that we take you through what is happening in the world of news, and importantly, we kickstart your week on an interesting note. Welcome on board. It's always a pleasure doing this with you, and importantly, having you being part of the discussions and, of course, the sessions all through up until 9 a.m. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela is my Twitter handle, and of course, the office Twitter handle is at TV47KA. Be part of this session. We'll certainly be glad to sample some of your comments as we proceed. As always, on Mondays, we take a look at what has been happening over the weekends and, importantly, the political events. So we'll be pondering on the same later on the broadcast, and importantly, also matters nutrition every other Monday. As we give you the breakfast tips of the week, we also take you through nutritional values, nutritional ways of ensuring that you stay healthy. Today, we focus on exclusive breastfeeding, and just how do you get to sustain it is how we're going to be taking you through. I'm sure the mothers will be alert. Make sure that you pick a pen and a paper if need be, and you get to learn all together. We'll also be taking you through what is happening in the world of news. We take a look at the newspapers and also what it is that my team has prepared. So welcome on board once again. And officially, let's kickstart our Monday by taking a look at what it is that is here with me. And teachers are set to report to work today in preparation for schools reopening. Some schools have already started preparations for the reopening, which sources indicate is likely to be the 5th of October for the first phase. And as Nanok Lauren now reports, the Kenya Medical Association says the lower number of COVID-19 cases reported is as a result of lower testing numbers.
Teachers are set to report back to school on Monday in preparation for the reopening of schools as directed by the Teachers Service Commission (TSC). The first phase of learners resuming learning is likely to begin on the 5th of next month. This will include pupils in grade 4, class 7 and 8 for primary level, and students in form 3 and 4 in secondary schools. President Uhuru Kenyatta is set to announce the fate of schools in his address to the nation on Tuesday. And as teachers wake up tomorrow to head over to their respective places of work, a number of schools have started their preparations on the laid out guidelines to be followed when learners resume.
School is clean. Yeah, so we are yet to open the classrooms on Monday and see how they'll be cleaned. Yeah. So most of the things are in place actually.
Parents in different parts of the country have expressed their thoughts pertaining to their children carrying on with their schoolwork, this time round not from home but from their classrooms.
Tunaomba kama ni shule hata kesho zifunguliwe kwa sababu watu wanapata shida, watoto wameharibika, na hii yote lawama itakuwa kwa serikali kwa sababu hawaplan kitu sawa sawa.
Watoto wengi wameharibika. Wengi wako na mimba, hata vijana wengine sasa hivi wamekuanza ukora mingi, uizi. So kufungua kwa shule itakuwa wamefanya kitu ya maana sana.
However, the Kenya Medical Association has come out strongly to say that in order to justify the reopening of schools, there is need for evidence to show that the virus has been controlled in the country. And those supporting a phased reopening of schools, KMA says it will be putting students at risk if they will go back to school without clear information on community transmissions.
To justify the opening of these institutions, we need to have evidence of the epidemiological pattern of the pandemic, and this can only be informed if we have adequate testing so that it can help us make an informed decision on whether to open or not to open. We also need to get information from the community initiative, whether community transmission has been eliminated significantly so that we can allow our children to go back to school.
As a requirement for reopening, the association is recommending the designation of COVID-19 isolation and treatment facilities across all counties to handle any potential spikes in transmission that might occur once schools reopen.
When schools are being opened, to ensure that we have access to the health services for the children, they have access to mental and psychosocial support, and they have access to free personal protective equipment and the sanitizers and hand washing facilities.
Schools have been shut down and physical learning brought to a complete halt for close to 7 months now as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Nanok Lauren, TV47.
Thank you, Nanok, for that. And as President Uhuru Kenyatta is expected to address the nation today on measures of reopening the country, Kenyans are hopeful that some of the restrictions to prevent the spread of coronavirus will be lifted to pave way for a full resumption of the economy. Mwangi Minor reports.
President Uhuru Kenyatta is on Monday expected to address the nation on measures his administration will be putting in place to reopen the country. The address coming amid high expectations from Kenyans that some of the restrictions to prevent the spread of coronavirus will be lifted. President Uhuru Kenyatta will have a virtual meeting with governors before addressing the nation. Meanwhile, bar owners, hotel and liquor traders in Nakuru County, in what is seen as a rare scenario, congregated for a Sunday service at a church in Nakuru. The traders prayed for divine intervention, hoping that the president will announce the reopening of their businesses.
Wakati unaenda kuaddress the nation, tufungulie nchi, tumefika mwisho, na ndio leo tumekuja kanisani kumuomba Mungu. Tufungulie nchi ili tuweze kuingia na turudi kwa biashara zetu.
Hatukuweza kwenda kazi za mtaani kwa sababu unatoka kwa nyumba asubuhi, unarudi kwa nyumba asubuhi. Hata mzee mtaa hakujui. Unapokwenda kule kwa sababu anakuona jinsi ulivyokuwa unakaa, labda amekuona na KTV, anaona wewe hauna shida. Lakini watu wa hoteli wamekuwa wakisafa silently.
The traders made a passionate appeal to President Uhuru Kenyatta to reopen bars and entertainment joints, promising to follow all the stipulated COVID-19 containment guidelines.
Kazi ya badio inaongoza kwa uchumi. Sababu kama ningetaka tupewe nafasi kwa wakati hii. Sababu sasa uchumi imekwama na sisi tukifunguliwa tuone vile uchumi itakuwa.
President Uhuru Kenyatta is also expected to announce the official dates for resumption of schools as preparations to reopen schools are on high gear. President Uhuru Kenyatta, Cabinet and the Council of Governors are faced with a hard task of whether to reopen or not amidst an ostensibly flattening yet unpredictable curve. Mwangi Minor, TV47, Nairobi.
And from Mangi, Deputy President William Ruto has defended his hustlers tag, which has received support and criticism in equal measures. The DP was in Bumula in company of members of parliament allied to his Tanga Tanga faction of the Jubilee Party, who have yet again questioned the Huduma number registration.
Accompanying Ruto in Bumula, Bungoma County, the MPs yet again questioned the Huduma number registration exercise, which is slated to kick off by the end of the year. The MPs claiming the exercise is aimed at rigging the 2022 elections.
Na tumeambiwa wako wakora ambao wanakaa huko Runda, wanaongozwa na msichana anaitwa Pauline Njoroge. Hao ndio wanafanya falsify ile data ambaye itawekwa kwa huduma namba, na mimi nataka kuambia serikali ya Kenya kwamba hao ni wakora. Ati hiyo huduma namba ndio itatumiwa kupiga kura ya 2022.
The MPs further defending Ruto's hustler narrative, which has been criticized by Ruto's challengers.
Tunakuja pamoja ndio tuweze kuunda Kenya ambayo itasuluhisha mashida yako wewe kama hustler wa kawaida. Kwa sababu unaweza kuunda serikali ya kuiba mapesa huko.
Na mzee mmoja hapa anaitwa Tony. Anasema yeye ndio kiongozi ya Waluya. Sasa jana amesema ya kwamba ameongea na Waluya wote na mumesikizana.
The deputy president has also defended his hustlers tag, which he is campaigning on.
We are no longer going to discuss about positions for the mighty. We are going to discuss about jobs and opportunity for those of us who are at the bottom of the pyramid. That is the discussion we are going to have. If you are uncomfortable with it, too bad, because that is the country we live in. Hii Kenya ni ya mahasla. Mahasla ndio wengi dunia hii.
Meanwhile, Jubilee Party Deputy Secretary and Soy MP Caleb Kositany have supported Chief Justice David Maraga's advice to President Uhuru Kenyatta to dissolve Parliament. Speaking today in his Soy constituency, Kositany, who is a close ally of DP Ruto, says many legislators will not use Jubilee Party for re-election if Parliament is dissolved.
Na bunge ikifunywa, mimi sitaomba kiti ya Soy kupitia chama cha Jubilee, na tuko wengi. Hatutarudi kwa chama ya Jubilee unless chama ya Jubilee iwajibike, ibadilishwe, ipewe raia waongoze chama vile inataka chama iongozwe.
Kositany has, however, criticized President Uhuru Kenyatta for what he termed as militarization of institutions. Nancy Kimuyu, TV47.
And former Chief Justice Willie Mutunga has dismissed the BBI report, saying that the report can be advanced or cannot be advanced without Deputy President William Ruto's involvement. Speaking during the launch of Kongamano la Mageuzi movement, Mutunga said that the report has been more divisive than unifying.
Former Chief Justice William Mutunga has questioned the genuineness of leaders advocating for the BBI report, criticizing President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga for excluding Deputy President William Ruto in the BBI quest.
If BBI was so great, why haven't they implemented the 2/3? Okay, why aren't you asking them? The only thing about BBI that I liked is one thing where they said they are going to call a national conference of all of us, and we focus on where Kenya will be in 100 years. That excites me, all right? But the other things, unity, you cannot talk about unity if Ruto is not there.
Mutunga pointed out how the mighty and powerful are for the longest time divided Kenyans, urging Kenyans to steer away from divisive politics as the country heads for the 2022 polls.
I'm not underestimating them. They are powerful people. But you have to deal with their myths. You have to deal with, the way they divide us.
Mutunga was speaking during the launch of Kongamano la Mageuzi movement, led by activists who criticize leaders whose only agenda is to cling on to power.
The primary challenge that we are facing as Kenyans is a small group of people who hold our institutions and our futures hostage to their own selfish commercial interests. They can be called deep state, they can be called whatever we want, but we know that their primary purpose is to hold on to political power, to be able to steal from us.
KLM therefore declares a national mission of freedom and salvation from all and every ruling cartel and their accomplices. Through our mission, we declare the beginning of the end of Kenya being governed by its most accomplished thieves, cheats and bullies. We call on all Kenyans to join KLM to reject and defeat the politics of division, death and theft. Must that continue to dash our hopes and confidence as a people.
The BBI report is yet to be presented to President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga.
And tourism is among the sectors worst hit by COVID-19 pandemic, not just locally, but globally. And as the world marked Tourism Day yesterday, the government is optimistic that the industry will be revived with indications that tourists are starting to stream in. In Mombasa, the celebrations were marked by riders in an occasion that was graced by Governor Hassan Ali Joho, and Mariam Mwacharo reports from Mombasa.
The tourism sector has been hit hard by the coronavirus pandemic. As the world marked the World Tourism Day, the government has promised to invest more in the tourism sector. Tourism Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala has called on all counties to join hands in revamping the tourism sector in the country.
To take advantage and come together and establish products that are going to be utilized by our local tourists and international tourists. It is important for us to create jobs, and we want to create jobs all over the country.
Mombasa County marked the day by inviting bikers from Nairobi County to join their colleagues in Mombasa on a tour along tourist destination areas around the county. Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho said it's time to join hands and promote sports tourism, promising to make great development for the county's tourism sector.
Mombasa indeed can be and is lucrative for sports tourism. We are also here to showcase the world that Mombasa is progressing to ensure we become, if not the most cyclable or one of the most cyclable cities in the country or in the continent.
Mombasa County Senator Ali Faki has however called on the president to lift the strict measures already in place.
Na hivi sasa ilipofika ni kwamba kila mtu ashachoka na vizuizi vya corona. Ama sivyo? Ama sivyo? Kwa hivyo tumshauri gavana, amshauri rais afanye nini? Afungue, ama sio? Gavana wananchi washasema.
More celebrations were held in other counties across the country. Nikiripotia runinga ya TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Mombasa, jina langu ni Mariam Mwacharo.
And the border industry has over the years grown to create employment for many young people in the country, with an employment rate soaring each day. The industry has emerged as one of the biggest revenue generating sectors in Meru County. In Gembe South constituency, border operation have continued to become popular, with at least 90% of business people venturing into the sector. And as Andrin Kilemi found out, many of the operators are graduates.
A boda caravan in a Gembe South constituency, Meru County. One with over 2,000 bodas that are used for transport in Maua town and its environs. These boda operators are members of Nyambene Boda Sacco that was formed in 2013, comprising of 270 boda operators back then. The Sacco would then in 2014 get more members, bringing the total number of registered members to 500, before growing to 6,000 members in 2017, while in 2018, 2019 and 2020, the number of registered members went up to 7,400.
Wale watu wengi wako hapa, wale wanafanya biashara pikipiki, ni watu wale ambao walikuwa wanafanya biashara za miraa. Tangu miraa ilete shinda, ile miraa iko nayo saa hizi, hakuna soko zimefungwa. Ndio tumeona kila mwaka inaenda ikiongezeka. Hasa wakati ilifungwa ya London, watu wale wote walikuwa kwa miraa ya London wote waliingia sekta ya pikipiki. Ikakuja ikafungwa tena, saa hizi imefungwa ya Somalia. Haiendi Somalia ambao ndio tulikuwa tunaangalia na ndio tulikuwa tunapata mapato. Saa hizi watu wale wote wakaingia kwa pikipiki. Sio kumaanisha wako na pesa, wanaenda wanakopa kwa mabank, wanakuja kufanya biashara.
Poor road network in the area has contributed to the increasing number of bodas, with many roads being inaccessible.
Na pikipiki ndio saa source ya kutoa watu kutoka mashambani kuja town. Na wakifika town ndio wanapata magari. Kwa hivyo shinda ile tuko nayo sana ni ya barabara.
Ni kwamba pikipiki zinaweza zikakufikisha popote unataka kwenda. Ukitaka kuingishwa reserve unaingishwa. Ukitaka kupelekwa popote unaweza.
More than 1,000 operators within the Sacco are graduates from various universities across the country. Following the increasing rate of unemployment, many opted to venture into the boda business.
Sasa hizi tuko na watu wako na diploma zao. Kuna wale wako na certificate yao. Kuna wale ambao wako na PhD. Kama hii muungano wetu tuko na watu wako na PhD, wale tuko nao wamemaliza na wako hapa kwa hii chama. Tuko na wao 28. Wale ambao nimejua, wale ambao wamejieleza na tukaelewa kama komiti zetu, tukajua tuko na wao. Tuko na 28 wale wako na PhD ambao wanafanya hii matatu. Kuna wale wako na diploma, tuko na wao zaidi ya 1,000. Kuna wale wako na certificates, wale ambao wamefanya courses, kuna wale wamefanya nurses, kuna wale wamefanya kazi ya ualimu, na wote wanafanya hii kazi ya biashara.
Kiremi Mogera is one among the many university graduates in this Sacco. Kiremi is a Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University graduate. He graduated in 2017 with a bachelor's degree in actuarial science, but since then, he has not been lucky enough to get his dream job.
So after kumaliza 2017, nilitafuta kazi, nikatamak, nikaluzo. Then I used some means, nikaangukia sasa niko na boda yangu, nafanyanga matatu hapa Maua. Lakini of late kazi imeharibika, si venye ilikuwa.
He says getting a job in the Kenyan system is one of the hardest jobs, since many employers require one with vast experience before landing a job.
Unaniambia miaka 7 nitatoa wapi?
Keremi is calling on fellow graduates to look for alternative means of putting their best foot forward.
Okay, it's their time that youth started thinking not about the government but about themselves. Wajue education, yes, is just a basic need, but it's not the only way to survive. Na kutegemea education sana, you can die poor because of the system that we have, that I have to get someone to hold my hand ili nipate kazi.
But the business has its own fair share of challenges.
Saa hii wakati ya corona, hiyo ndio tumepata changamoto ile mbaya sana, kwa sababu pikipiki inaweza hitaji hata 1,500. Saa hiyo hakuna customer wamekuwa kidogo.
Tumechukua pikipiki hizi, tumechukua kwa deni na tunazilipa, lakini ukiangalia saa hii hali ya maisha imekuwa ngumu, lakini unakuta watu ambao tunalipa deni zao hawatupatie muda kutafuta pesa.
Like myself, mimi niko na loan ya HELB kutoka 2017, I have it na sina namna ya kulipa. Unakuta kama umepata 300 kwa siku, ni kukula utakula ama ni loan utalipa. Hawa watu ya magari tuanze kusumbuana na wao kwa barabara, kwa sababu unaweza fikia mahali uone gari imeovertake na una mahali ya kukimbilia, hapo ndio unapata hata accident inatokea. Tunaomba serikali kama kuna kitu inasaidia aswa area hizi za Igembe, ni tuone vile watafungua miraa, hata kama ni pikipiki zetu, at least yule wa pikipiki afanye pikipiki, yule mbiashara wa miraa apate kazi kwa miraa, ili at least kila mtu apate chakula ya siku.
It was considered an ingenious answer to the problem that faces the transport sector, and especially in the rural areas where roads are not accessible. Today, it is the preferred mode of transport. Andrin Kilemi, TV47, Maua, Meru County.
Thank you so much, Andrin. And the Ministry of Environment has directed Environmental Committee led by NEMA, KEFRI, Kenya Water Towers, Kenya Forest Services and National Environmental Committee to map out, register and certify all 3 nurseries in Kenya ahead of the historic tree planting exercise. The ministry is targeting to plant more than 2 billion tree seedlings before 2022. Calvin Chitwa reports from Eldoret.
The Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Dr. Chris Kipto, said that the mapping out and certification exercise will be carried out by October, and thereafter the government shall source for funds to purchase best quality seedlings.
I am therefore directing the National Government Environmental Committee to map out, register, and certify all tree nurseries in Kenya. That is a directive which you have been given. And we expect you to have done that work by end of, according to the PC, you are supposed to have done it by Q1. So you have an additional 1 month, and we told your board yesterday to make sure you fast track that, so that all the nurseries here can now be registered, and you make sure you are certified.
The PS revealed that the tree planting exercise is aimed at attaining national average of 10%, adding that the experts advised the ministry to plant 1 billion trees.
You have heard we want to plant 1.8 billion. We are going to get private sector. We are also going to get government to support the purchase of those seedlings. And if we get the funds, only those funds will go to the registered nurseries. So could you make sure that you are registered? It is important that you register yourself, because if you are not registered and certified, we will not trust the quality of your seeds.
The PS spoke in Nandi County during Koitalel Samoei University Tree Planting Day, where more than 4,000 indigenous tree seedlings were planted along the riparian areas at the university. Calvin Chitwa, TV47, Nandi County.
Well, that story by Calvin Chitwa now takes us for a short break. We'll be coming back later to take a look at the newspapers. And we're now back with the newspapers, and joining me for the same is Edwin Kigoli, who's a youth leader. And of course, we'll be taking a look at what has been captured on the People Daily, the Standard newspaper, and the Daily Nation. Good morning, Edwin.
Good morning to you.
Doing well?
Yes.
All right, Karibu Sana. It's long since we had you.
Yeah, it's been a long while.
And now let's take a look at what is on the newspapers. And the biggest story on the People Daily, best and worst members of parliament revealed, as we take a look at this ranking later on on the broadcast. And well, numerous leaders have been captured right there, women reps, and also this is in regards to how the people on ground sort of felt. So the constituents were asked to rate their leaders. This was based on performance in the National Assembly and in running a constituency development fund, a story that has been captured on page 4 and 5. And, the report expounded extensively. The cream, Omboko Milemba, Joanna Ngeno, Gladys Wanga, Christopher Aseka, and Patrick Musimba. The poor performers, Abdi Koropu, Muturi Kiganu, Innocent Obiri, Emilio Dhiambo, Gadoni Wamushomba. This, I don't know what you make of this, honestly.
Hi, Linda.
Hi. Oh, we also have you, Nordine. How are you?
Yes.
All right. Well, apologies for that. Good to have you. Good to have you. So, yes, there you go. And the performance index. I don't know whether your MP has been named. Any of your MPs has been named on the list or the top or the poor performers. I don't know whether you were able to look at the sheet itself, but all the same, I'd want to hear what you make of this.
As for me, my MP, Simba Arati, has been named in Nairobi.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can see the rankings that have been done for the members of parliament. But to some people, the ranking is fine, okay. But most of the work that people are talking about can't be seen or felt on the ground. And the most important work that they are supposed to do is enactment of the law, where I think 3/4 of our MPs fail there, because that is the bread and butter of what they're supposed to be doing.
All right, there you go. And Kigoli, first of all, the question is just how much some of these rankings genuine, and just how many people get to be questioned on the performance of their MPs, just how many of them are really aware of exactly what it is that their members of parliament are doing. And some of them are probably not even genuine. Just because you've not met their member of parliament, you sort of feel like they're not doing anything.
Well, it is a bit hard for me to determine the authenticity of the rankings, but I would say they must be anchored on something. And for me, my member of parliament is Honorable Tim, and he's really doing a tremendous job, an amazing job. And it is not hard to see what he's been doing for the period he's been a member of parliament. So, but looking at the report, some of the most outspoken leaders are the least performers. And then being coming from Vihiga County, I also don't forget home. And my MP, the Honorable Agoi, he's ranked poorly, and I'm not happy with that, because my home area to develop, but the home area has been receiving bad leadership, bad direction, not developing as it should. But for me, Nairobi, I'm good.
All right. Well, okay, and let's not expound some more on that. I think that we'll be doing later on the broadcast. But then this is squarely about the constituents of the respective members of parliament. But indeed, a huge report that comes in handy to expound just how much that need of development is dire, and that need of proper representation is dire amongst the people of Kenya. And another story also that has been captured is that teachers are set to, proceed and go to school today. So TSC to punish absent tutors, and staff are expected back in school today to prepare institutions for reopening in early October. Nordine Kagai, coming to you. This is a story that has been expounded on page 7, and this is what we expected. A raft of activities within our schools today?
I remember we talked about this last week, and for me, I still hold the view that it's not yet time to open schools. Because, honestly speaking, I don't see the need or the rush to take children back to school right now. Because what measures has the government put to protect the children? Because now they say children are safer in schools than at home. But remember, for a child, social distancing is a myth. Because they share little things even like sweets, you know. And we can see that the measures are being strict on the teachers, but you have to realize the ratio of children to teachers is huge. So we are seeing a situation where they're going to open schools. Fine. But what next? Once schools are open, we pray and hope that what happened like in the European countries where they open schools and they were hit with the second wave that started right from schools. We hope that doesn't happen in Kenya. But since they're opening, I hope and pray that they'll disburse funds to schools so that they can be able to protect themselves. Otherwise, we might be going or taking ourselves into a danger territory. Yeah.
All right. Well, and to you, Edwin, do you suppose that we are being, unrealistic with the approach that we're bringing on board? Well, we had measures, and the argument was that, some of these leaders do not even understand what happens in the slums to set up measures like, maintain a social distance and all that. And now we are at that level where we're talking about having our students, resume classes or go back to school. Just how realistic are we, one, with the kind of measures that are being put on board to ensure that we curb the spread of COVID-19? And the fact that, yes, we have seen students, in different parts of the world going back to school.
Well, thank you for that question. Very important and pertinent. Number one, we should not reopen schools on impulse. We need to have a proper plan. We need to have a clear roadmap on how and when we should open schools. Because you even look at the time left before the normal ending of the academic calendar. And then you also need to look at the logistics in place, like pupils and students coming from all over the country, particularly when it comes to the issue of boarding schools. Is it a safe thing to do? And the Minister of Education, under the able leadership of Professor George Magoha, need to be very categorical and very targeted, so that we do not start with, our schools and then it brings a lot of problems. So what we need to do is, when we say schools are opening, first of all, have we flattened the curve? I am not confident. Are we testing enough numbers to act as a mirror of the, going down of infections? I am not confident. Should we take our primary school pupils, most especially, back to school at this point in time when there is a lot of uncertainty around this area? Personally, I do not think it would be very easy to address social distancing when it comes to primary schools. We can achieve this when it comes to secondary school students, but when it comes to primary, it's a bit hard. And are parents willing, to risk and send their kids back to school? And look at the economic aspect of it. Are parents financially ready to pay fees, even if they are not paid fees, but they must pay fees? How will kids receive services in schools? So these schools are run by money. Maybe we can say government will fund the programs, but again, when you send the kid in school, it comes with a cost, especially those in school. Those coming from far, you have to take care of their shopping, you have to take care of the transport.
But just how much of a difference, Edwin, how much of a difference will there be if we're to say that students should go back to school in January? Because the argument really is not even in just how prepared we are, but also the timings, like you have rightfully put it, money is required. And most of the parents have lost their jobs and all that. Just how much of a difference would it be come January if students are supposed to go back to school? And looking at other countries that, we've seen amid all these tough times, some of them actually, in the European world, are going back to school. And the situation is even more dire on the other end.
Well, I would want to quote Professor Magoha.
Yeah.
He said, even if the infections continue to rise by the time January is here, and then kids will continue to stay at home.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to whatever difference between now and then, if the curve will have truly been flattened, then that is a time when then we can talk about kids going back to school.
Mm-hmm.
And again, when you know now schools are opening in January, as a parent, I'll start to plan way in advance. Like I need to save a lot of money for my kid to go back to school. Just like Christmas is almost here, and you know what that month means. So we'll cut on our budgets to make sure that we secure our kids back to school. So when it comes to a difference, it depends on a number of things. It depends on the Ministry of Health efforts to ensure we're testing sufficient number of people, and then it will come to the Ministry of Education providing a clear roadmap on when these schools are going to open. And then it comes to parents. What plans are we having to plan for our kids to go back to school?
Mm-hmm. All right, in that case, then I'll ask this question, and it's of course a story that has been captured on page 8 of the People Daily. High hopes as President charts a post-COVID-19 plan for Kenya. What are your expectations, Nordin?
For me, I believe we're at a point where it's supposed, now it's more or less a youth thing. In like precautionary measures, it's beyond now the government. We should be able to take care of ourselves now. I believe it's time to open up and reduce some restrictions, because one, people are suffering. The economy is nosediving. People can't be able to pay rent. They can't be able to feed themselves. And I believe whatever they're trying to do with the schools is more or less like a guinea pig, which is the wrong move.
Yeah.
They're trying to see whether they can open up the economy using schools. Now you see that is endangering the children. So for me, I believe he should, like for example, the curfew.
Yeah.
More or less lift it, because as we stand right now, it's not even being observed. It's there just by name.
Mm-hmm.
But if you walk out at around, let's say 9:30,
yeah,
10, 12, 1, as I was coming here today early in the morning, people are out, you know.
Yeah.
So I believe we're going to a point where we need to make this a you problem, in that everybody takes care of themselves, and we're supposed, and the government should be, now they should put stringent measures. Let's say open up the economy, but now put fines. For example, let's say whenever you're out, like they say now, whenever you're out, you have to have a mask. Now take it a notch higher.
Yeah.
Put fines, proper fines, but don't make the fines a way for the police people to make money. But find a way of how you can make people be accountable on their own actions. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's an interesting view right there. And what are your expectations, Kigoli?
Yes, thank you. These things already are existing.
Yeah.
Fines and those stringent measures, they're already in place. But again, you see, we need to balance lives and livelihoods. And I've always said this, that should we continue having the curfew in place? To me, curfew has been overtaken by events. We need to open the country. When it comes to issue of, just trying to police people, right now, people have been moving around, people have been interacting. There are those who've been wearing masks, there are those who have not been wearing masks, and we are surviving as Kenyans. So the president should shift the focus and responsibility on us as he tried to do, so that everybody will be responsible for themselves. You need to think how many people work in social joints lost their jobs. Should they continue staying at home, or what do we do? So for me, I would ask my president to lift the curfew in the first place, because other containment measures have been eased, save for curfew. Let the curfew be eased so that nightlife can come back to normal, people can get back to work. The people who would want to travel overnight can travel, so that this transport sector also can breathe a sigh of relief. But in terms of moving forward, I think what we just need to do is to exercise responsibility as Kenyans. We do not have the capacity to test as many people, because if you look at how many have been tested, it's just a fraction of the population of Kenya. So forward, then we need to really take testing seriously, and then we exercise responsibility, wear masks, social distancing, like it's not working too much, but put on a mask and just know it is up to you.
All right. Okay, and looking at the Standard newspaper front page, and this is a story that, has been captured on page 2 to 7 of the Standard newspaper, speaking of the good, the bad, and the ugly of COVID at times. Just a reminder of where we are coming from, hits and misses of COVID-19 as we try to load that. Just a reminder of the fact that, yes, we are not yet off the hook. And just a reminder that even as we talk of this, we've had talks of monies being lost courtesy of COVID-19. And taking us back to the People Daily, speaking of the monies that we are talking about, there is a story that has been captured on the People Daily page 2, and Susan Mochache demands apology from PPRA over role of KEMSA. That is the Health Principal Secretary, who has demanded for an apology for the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority for giving misleading facts on her role in procuring COVID-19 items. So even as we talk of having the president ease the restrictions, even as we talk of having the government taking a decision that is probably going to ease the burden for the Kenyans, especially at this time of COVID-19 and tough economic times. Nordine, we still are grappling with matters corruption. We still haven't gotten answers as to the monies that have been lost, the KEMSA scandal, monies lost during this time of COVID-19. Just how genuine are we, first of all, in the fight against graft?
First and foremost, the fight against corruption is a good fight.
Yeah.
But I believe it has turned into a weapon. It's been weaponized, and it's not functioning the proper way. It's turning out into be a PR exercise. And that's the problem. Because we see so many arrests, the Kamata Fridays, as they're normally called.
Yeah.
And when people go to court, the charges against them, most of the time are okay. Most of the time, in the eyes of the public, the PR game is played. So, but when you go to the facts, whatever they're being charged for, the due diligence has not been done. So you find people tend to say that the lawyers tend to help the accused. Well, your case is as good as it's presented in court. So if you present a shoddy case in court, and you can't substantiate whether the person actually stole. Now, we know there are funds which are missing. For example, in the KEMSA case, we're seeing the PS is saying she wants an apology or whatnot. Now, we as Kenyans, what we are saying is, this blame game that we are seeing between KEMSA, the ministry, and what have you, those are just sideshows. And everybody is trying to exonerate themselves, and they are mere distractions. So we need answers away from the distractions.
Yeah.
And how do we get answers? The DPP should wake up. That is the only way forward. The DPP, the DCI, the ESCC, they need to wake up. Because where we are right now, that's why you see people from the other camp, the DP's camp, what they are saying is they feel like they are being targeted. And the moment, a law is not selective, the law should apply to every single individual. So when the law is applying to a certain group of people, that's when people will say this corruption thing is not a PR exercise, and it's going nowhere.
Okay, yes. All right, and we dropped that one. Come to this other story still on the People Daily page 2. Divided opinion by MPs of Amaraga Advisory. Reason why I want you to take up on this, Edwin, is because we've not had a chance to have a conversation revolving around this. It's a conversation that has taken center stage in the country. The better part of last week, from Friday, upon that advisory by CJ Maraga, some arguing that the president should go ahead and dissolve Parliament, some arguing that will ponder or will plunge the country into disaster. Some arguing that there needs to be a conversation revolving around the Constitution, and that then would mean that we proceed to make changes or amendments that would root out some of the loopholes that we have. What do you make of this, even as legislatures express differing voices over this call?
Number one, that if the president agreed to the CJ's advisory as per Article 261(7), then it would cause a lot of uncertainty, a lot of constitutional crisis in the country, because the current budget, 2020-2021, there is no anticipation of such a thing, and therefore we need Parliament to appropriate money for the same activity. So it is, the CJ was performing his constitutional duty, but against a backdrop of what? What consequences would be occasioned by the dissolution of Parliament? What would it mean from an economic turnaround perspective that is needed as a result of the impact of coronavirus? Is it something that we need to do? And the question we need to ask ourselves is this: this 2/3 gender rule, how is it applying? You understand? When you give the people of Kenya a chance to elect their leaders, what do you tell them? You tell them, vote for the leader whomever you choose to represent you. It is not easy, it is not practical to attain that 2/3 gender rule when it comes to electing members of parliament, women, members of parliament and governors and senators, because that is the sovereign will of the people of Kenya. But we can handle this issue when it comes to issue of nomination, the cabinet, where you have to sit and decide who fills this position, who fills that position. That way, we will achieve. And I agree with a senator who said that clause, in fact, in the first place, should be removed from the Constitution. I have that opinion. Otherwise, this thing will continue bringing us problems. It is not easy to achieve when it comes to elective positions. So lastly, what my take is on the 2/3 gender rules. When it comes to elective positions, let the people of Kenya decide. Whichever men and women win, let them be as the people want. But when it comes to nomination, then we can talk about now, make sure you attain 2/3 gender rule, because we are not living in heaven. We are living on earth. And why should we burden ourselves with something that we know it belongs, the decision belongs of Kenya?
Wow. All right, I don't want to weigh in on that, but I'll loop in Nordin. Nordin, yes. Let me just let's pick this story also on the front page of the Standard newspaper. And Ruto in a frenzy. Tweet storm. A day after sending out 11 tweets on the deep state, Godfathers and BBI, the DP's allies, now back dissolution of parliament. As Ruto takes campaigns a notch higher, his critics say he is sprinting in a marathon and will soon be gasping for air. This is a story that has been captured on page 8 of the Standard newspaper. But yes, that in relation to what it is that we've just been talking about on the dissolution of parliament advisory by CJ Maraga. I mean, when you look at this and the fact that now Tangatanga, allies are now speaking on that tone of, yes, there's that need that we dissolve a parliament. What do you make of it, first of all?
Well, like I told you, we have two factions now. We have those who want the parliament to stay as it is, and we have his side that wants dissolution. Because they a by-election will mean they are going to win. You see, he believes deep down that he has the numbers, according to him. And this would be a perfect time for him to flex his muscles. For me, I'd say that the 2/3 law can be achieved. You know why? Because Parliament has the authority to enact laws. That's their duty, enact laws. The issue on nomination is neither here nor there. Because as a young man, I am for the dissolution. You know why? Because after the advice from the CJ, he says the dissolution of parliament. Now, if by any chance they enact the law on 2/3 gender, on the 2/3 gender rule, I as a young man would want Article 100 of the Constitution to be implemented, where the youth, PWBs, women, communities marginalized can get the chance to be represented in parliament. And we do not want just nominations, because when you talk about nominations, you have people who was as old as 60 years old being nominated to represent the youth. Between him and I, we're in two different centuries. There is no way you know what I'm going through. So I believe we should find a way to enact the 2/3 gender. because that is an easier way for a young man to claim the Article 100 to be implemented. That is what I think. Yes.
All right. Speaking of the politics of the day and the DP, yes?
Yes, there is just something I need to point out from my colleague Nordin has said.
Yeah.
It is not an issue of laws, because this is already a law that is causing problems that need to be clearly underscored. Number two, it can be achieved through nomination than election. I just wanted to get my colleague clearly on that. And number three, the CJ looks more of doing his job than meaning well for this country.
Oh, yeah?
How many months does he have left before he leaves office? So he wants to leave a crisis in this country as he goes to retire.
Would it not be a different tone in the event that he does not do that? Because then we know very well that this is constitutionally and it is his mandate to do that. In the event that he chose to go home without, calling or giving that advisory, I mean, wouldn't it look like, again, that was sabotage? Wouldn't have, the questions arised, of course, especially with the women.
But Alila, law does not exist in a vacuum. Law, you see, law should be applied from a practical sense as you make that decision. And I would want to quote the Honorable Kenneth Marende. He said when he was in the judicial event in 2013 that the judiciary, even as you take that ruling, examine it against the existing economy of the country so that you do not make a right decision that is going to cause monumental damage to a country's economic situation. So look at the prevailing situation. Should we pump money into a by-election, or should we pump money into SMEs, turning around the economy, reviving, the private sector and making sure that government is functioning very well? Should we do that? Is it a priority for us now? It is not a priority. How far are we from the 2022 elections? Not very far. Right. So this institution is not a rigid document. It is meant for us. So we are the people who gave ourselves this constitution, and we have the power to tell the constitution, yes, we passed you, but you will not demand this from us too much. Let us hold on. This constitution is ours. It is our own. Yeah. Like, just I would negotiate with my father. Like the deal, we had agreed on this one, but look at the prevailing circumstances. I think it might not very well work. So can we push this thing and give ourselves a little bit of more time as we prepare and plan to get it into a better shape and put ourselves in a better situation to handle it? But if we just say, let us do as it says, then we look at the damage it is going to cause in retrospect, which might not be very good.
All right. Well, time is not on our side. We're exactly at 7 a.m., but not before we take a look at the Daily Nation and matters politics. NASA coalition has all but crumbled. Raila, the unlikely underdog of 2022, and will he not, a former prime minister who has kept friend and foe guessing whether he is in the presidential race, is going about it in a lame and focused way that is not typical of the experienced and aggressive tactician. Does he have a secret card? Page 4, and also coupling it with the fact that yes, the argument on ground has been it's going to be a battle between him and the DP. Briefly, let's weigh in on this because we are expounding some more on matters politics before we get to wind up on this. Nordin?
I believe come 2022, Raila will always have a role to play in our politics. Whether he decides to vie or he decides to be a kingmaker, most definitely he will have a say. I believe he has a secret card. With him, we always tend to say that he's done. He's done and dusted. Everybody thought he was over until you saw him and Uhuru with the handshake.
All right.
So I believe he has a role to play. What role exactly, only he knows as for now. Because right now, people are saying it's between him and Ruto. It's not true because he has a declared interest. The only person who is who's vying for a seat other than Ruto, who announced recently, is Ruto, who currently is the front runner by virtue of the DP. So anybody else comes straight after. But for Raila, his people are saying he's going to vie. That might be a diversion tactic You know, you never know, because in politics, one day is equivalent to 1,000 days. You know,
Right.
so anything might happen. But I believe he has a role to play. He has been there for a while. So we are in for interesting times. But what I believe is that come 2022, and I want my friend Edwin to hear me.
Yes.
Wherever you are, Edwin, wake up and move away from the mentality that you as a young man, you are there to be used as a ladder. Boss, it's time to bring down that ladder, deconstruct those shackles that we have been put in, and take up leadership positions. Offer alternative leadership. So when you get to what we want, let's say, for example, Parliament, we want young men in Parliament, so that things like enactment of laws are done. We avoid this issue of dissolving Parliament after every 5 years, for example, like since they couldn't be able to enact the Tooth Agenda rule.
Yeah.
We avoid such scenarios.
Okay.
And we bring back the foresight that our forefathers had in fighting for independence.
All right. So, well, gentlemen, thank you so much for that. The other guests are already on standby. So, Kigoli, I won't allow you to weigh in on that because we're talking matters politics after this, but also not to go before we capture this story or we take a look at this story. Page 14 of the Daily Nation. Tea boycott looms. Farmers threaten a boycott to press for sector reforms. And also we've seen on matters health. And of course, medics in Kenyatta National Hospital officially also, declared that a strike moment. I mean, all the strikes left, right, and center. Kigoli, as we wind up in 30 seconds, I mean, what does it speak of the economy? What does it speak of the governance of the country? And just how best can we handle this to avoid such scenarios as we wind up?
Thank you. Number one, economic turnaround is the most pressing subject matter that these countries should be handling right now. We look at the economic stimulus plan that the president advanced. What we should focus on is make sure that that money is put into prudent use so that we get the turnaround as quickly as possible. When you realize the impact coronavirus has caused, it's not really an economic crisis, but a health crisis that has economic effect. So it would take the V shape of resuscitating our economy, which would be very, not too complicated to handle, to bring back that to life. So, lastly, my colleague talked about, young people standing up, and that's something I want to echo. Let young people stand up and defend the future, because the currently best decisions are going to impact negatively on the future of young people. So are we going to sit and watch as our future is being mutilated? That is not right. So lastly, on that one, I think as a country, we should be more serious about things that matter. We should set aside petty politics and politics of vengeance for national good. Let us do service for the common humanity. Let us revive economic sector. Let us make sure that our tourism is back on track. Travel is just spot on as well. Thank you.
All right, Edwin Kigoli right there, youth leader, and Nordin Kagai, who's a lawyer. Thank you so much for the great insights. Let's now cross over to the next segment where we talk politics of the weekend after this short break. Welcome back to the broadcast. Time for us to discuss the politics of the weekend. And as always, our weekend will never lack politics. And I mean, this time around, for the longest of times, a month or so, culminating around two key figures, Right Honorable Raila Odinga and Deputy President Dr. William Ruto. Just what do they plan for the country? Do they really have the interests of the people of Kenya at heart, as they have argued, or it is just a game of their own interest? Some of these things that have happened over the weekend, and even at some point in time, we've had our political leaders being given marks, or so to speak. And of course, this report by Infotrack trying to paint a picture of what exactly it is that the people sort of feel about their members of parliament. Some of them who've been very vocal in the national politics, I mean, have done nothing, totally nothing for their very own people, which is very much unfortunate. Or if they have not done, if they've done something, at least they're being ranked amongst the last. And others, you know, who've been very silent, but silent and doing something for their very own people in terms of representing them in parliament. And importantly, you know, of course, the use of the CDF funds or the CDF kitty down at home. And joining me this morning, of course, right next to me is Ben Kinuthia, who's a lawyer and a governance expert. And joining us via Skype is Honorable Francis Kimemia, who is the governor of Nyandarua County. Mheshimiwa, good morning.
Good morning, Linda.
You're well.
And good morning. I'm well, very well.
Thank you so much for finding time for us this morning.
Thank you very much.
And importantly, good morning, Ben.
Good morning.
Good to have you.
Good to have you too.
All right, and yes, the politics of the weekend, Mheshimiwa. First of all, I mean, I think we should start by asking Mheshimiwa just how selfish they are, because honestly, in as much as they always paint a picture of, you know what, we love our people, we want to do the best for our people, really in most cases it's not the case. What is this thing with the politicians, Mheshimiwa?
No, politicians love their people, I can assure you. They love their people. Oh yes, they love their people very much. You sit on a seat that actually belongs to the people of Kenya.
Yes.
Or they elected you in your constituency or in your county. So, but I think what happens is how do your expectations meet the expectations of the people? Do the aspirations of the governor of Nyandarua County and the aspirations of the people of Nyandarua, is there an asymmetry?
Yeah.
Do we converge somewhere? Do they see their roads, their water, their education, their health, their services being improved? I think what we've done is this country does not, both the electorate and the leaders do not on a results-oriented scorecard. So that you are gauging your leader against a scorecard, and therefore your objective. Sometimes it is who shouts more, loudest, or who attacks the other loudest, or who ignores people but talks too much. I think we need to change the whole paradigm. How do we rank our leadership in this country, and then how do we also rank the stakeholders? Even the citizens must be accountable for their own deeds and also for the activities of their leaders.
Yes. All right. Well, when you talk about rankings and, just how much they've performed for us, then let me loop in Ben Kinuthia as we pick up on this particular report that was released by Infotrack over the weekend. And speaking of members of parliament who've probably performed well, the likes of Omboko Milemba topping the list. Omboko Milemba also sits in the, docket of matters education. Kupet, of course, the country Kupet chair, and he is in parliament representing his people. He's out there representing the teachers. He's out there also down on ground interacting with the people. I do not know what you make. I don't know whether you had a chance to see that, but also there's that report that is on my screen. Milemba on top in the latest ranking of legislatures, and most of these legislatures, women rep, of course, being listed at there. Buyu and Wanga top the list of best performing women representatives, and we've seen list of governors. We've seen list of members of county assemblies. We've seen list of different leaders from different quarters. In terms of performance, when Mheshimiwa says that yes, it's all about how do the expectations of the people meet those ones, or how do the expectations of the leaders meet those ones of the people? Yeah.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy to meet Governor for the first time, albeit from a very long distance. But one thing I would like to say is that first, congratulations to the people who have done well for their constituents. I hope that Infotrack, having had a history of sometimes not being very accurate in what they do, this time around, I hope they did their homework right. And I hope that what they have posted in the papers is a reflection of exactly what is happening on the ground. Because in the past, we've had MPs being ranked as being some of the best performing. But when you go back to the constituencies, the performance there is wanting, and it is not exactly what would have been expected of them. But congratulations to those who have topped the list, and shame on those who are at the very bottom of it, because they also need to think what is happening. Because I saw, I think the last name on that one was, I think, Gadhoni Mushomba. And yes, she's made a lot of noise politically, but it appears she's not doing her work for the people who elected her. And this is a wake-up call to those ones who are at the very bottom of this list to start thinking, where have I gone wrong? Why are my constituents not happy? And what needs to be done to change that?
All right, speaking of Gadhoni Mushomba, now let's look in you, Mheshimiwa, again, and we talk about the representation of women, which is now what we are conversing about right now. And, the bone of contention, the elephant in the room, that advisory by the CJ. Before we even delve into the advisory itself, do you suppose then that the women, in terms of representation, in terms of what it is that they do, have done enough to convince the people that there is need for us to push for two-third gender rule?
It's been very challenging. It's been very challenging for the women reps. And I'm not apologizing for them. One, I know their budget is quite minimal compared to say what the governor has. They are given a budget which, if I were them, I would refuse to. I would rather work as a senator. And maybe just for advocacy, but don't pretend to do anything on the ground with very little money, because then you end up with the problems. But even then, it would be good to check what have those who have not performed well done with what they are given. And I know the issue of accountability also have become a problem. Some of them have engaged in what you may call very mediocre activities. Sometimes competing with the county government, which has a lot of resources in terms of, say, health. So I think they did not do what you call the Pareto principle analysis, that you look for the 20% activities that will possibly give you 80% effect. Some just went in buying bed sheets for the hospitals. That is pure, core function of the county government, and we have millions of shillings to do that. So it will be seen as a competition with the government. But if they took, say, a social dimension approach, support the widows, support the people, support the marginal people, support the hungry. COVID had a lot of effects on poor people who went out of jobs. If they are seen trying to recover those who fell out due to either COVID or poverty, or the disabled who are not getting their fair share, the youth, that's where they would possibly put in the little money that they get from the national government.
And as you play the devil's,
and very well. I think even with the little that they have, it is possible to assess. Even if they say the 120 million or so that the MP gets from CDF, or what the governor, it is possible to assess people with what they have and with the impact, the outcomes that we see, the investments that they make. But I think the point made by Mr. Kinoti is very important. On the rankings, who is interviewed on the ground? Who is interviewed? Some of the people who will be found on the streets being interviewed are very louder people, and of course they have their supporters on the ground. So getting an objective, constituency that you interview to get a fair, objective view of the leader, I think is also very, very critical, and so that the assessment becomes objective.
All right. Okay. Well, and as you have played the devil's advocate, in defense of the women representatives, the lobbying, of course, from the people who are against the seat is way louder than the lobbying from the women themselves, to talk about how much they might need more, sent into their kitty. Because I remember I've heard Honorable Sabina Chege here, and for a moment I sat down with her and I was able to understand honestly the kind of toll that is within their office. And reality is that they are constraints in regards to the finances that is channeled towards them. They are looked at as the normal legislatures, the normal member of parliament, and of course they are given the amounts that would equal, of course, those ones that are channeled to the members of parliament. And reality is that when you look at them, they are more or less like the county representatives representatives as opposed to constituency representatives. So when we talk about funds and what it is that Mheshimiwa has raised, crucial to note, but reality is that they are also not speaking so loud so that this is known. Ben.
I think we have always lost the point here. When we talk of leadership, the core function of these people is legislation and oversight. Forget about having money. Because this country, there has been a lot more delivered by people who did not have money than those who had money.
Okay.
And why I say this is because it's supposed to be an issue of mainstreaming gender. For example, what have women done? Even a bill that would come and say, we also want to see gender mainstreamed, for example, at the county assemblies. We do not have a the two-third gender rule applying in the bulk of the county assemblies in this country.
Right.
There is an underrepresentation of women in the bulk of the county assemblies in this. And I would have expected the women who are sitting at Senate or the women who are even sitting at Parliament to come up with a bill that would at least, because constitutionally, there is no limit as to, like now, unfortunately in our constitution, Article 97 and 98 provides a limit as to how many people can be in Parliament and how many people can be in Senate. But there is no express provision in our constitution as to how many people are going to sit in the ward. So it is possible. Now, these women, what they should have done first, and I believe they have failed on that front, is legislation. They should have come up with bills that would see to it that there's an increase in the number of women, for example, at the county level, because very important decisions are made at the county. Remember, the bulk of the services, apart from security and education, the bulk of the services have been moved to the county. And if these services have been moved to the county, it means that votes are being passed for monies by people who are not necessarily meeting the two-third gender rule where women are supposed to be more. And not just the counties. There's so many appointments that go on in so many other spheres of government. I haven't seen women legislators come up with a bill or any form of campaign to lobby to ensure that women representation is higher in other parts of the government. It's only the two-third gender rule that they're talking about in Parliament and Senate. Yes.
All right. When we're talking about this, then briefly on this particular rankings that we see, and the argument is that, these are questions that are asked to the people on ground. What do you feel about the representation, of your member of Parliament in Parliament? What do you feel about what it is that they've done with the CDF kitty? So would you then consider this as unfair, or maybe one that you cannot bank on in terms of rankings, in terms of determining what it is that the members of Parliament have done? Because mostly the people on ground have no idea of what happens in Parliament. Their main focus is that, have we gotten water? Have we gotten this? Are our schools in the best of shape? Have we gotten bursaries? And that is how they tend to rank every other leader.
It is very difficult because in this country, the people who voted in Embakasi, for example, in 2017, are probably living in Donholm or Waithaka or Dagoretti. Nairobi is a very fluid place. There's a person who lives in Kasarani because they work on Thika Road. And if their boss moves office to Parklands, they move to Ngara. And so this person, if you meet them in Ngara and ask them, how is your MP behaving? They'll ask you, the one I voted for in Kasarani, or the one for Starehe, or the one I'm moving to in Kangemi. So some constituencies is so fluid that they would have to come up with a very unique matrix of high. But I can tell you for rural constituencies, it's very easy because people own up their constituencies. They feel this is where I belong, I was born here, so our MP was born in this other village, and we can be able to actually gauge and say this primary has done this has happened in this secondary school. But I can tell you for most cosmopolitan areas like Nairobi, Nakuru, Mombasa, you'll find a guy who lives in Nyali, the next time he's in Ganjoni, the next time he's in another part of Mombasa. And if you ask them about the MP, they tell you which one. Love that I tell you about my rural home MP. So it's a very tricky, I don't even know how they scientifically were able to come up with something that is truly representative of the actual situation on the ground.
All right, and on that one, we'll leave it at that and cross over to the Mount Kenya region, Aduanyuba, and it is now time, coming to you, Mheshimiwa. The race to get someone who's going to fit in the shoes of President Uhuru Kenyatta is on. And while the Mount Kenya region leaders would argue that theirs is a talk of development, it is evident and clear that they also have the interests of the people of Mount Kenya at heart. The question is, who's going to be the Mount Kenya kingpin something, who's going to take up the challenge. What is the stake for the people of Mount Kenya in the national politics? What do you make of the meetings that have, I don't want to say secretly been held? They have been held. Of course, it's been in the public domain, but of course, it's been meetings of the Mount Kenya leaders squarely.
Thank you very much for that question.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to comment. Mr. Kinodia mentioned something very important: the issue of focusing more on legislative issues that engender some of the debates that are going on in this country,
right.
Not only in law, also in the constitution. But I can assure you, in the counties, the constitution demands, for instance, if you are appointing, say, your cabinet or your officers in the county,
yeah.
that percent must be women. But I believe, and I think the reason why, and I agree with Kinodia, women should have lobbied, even in Parliament, to
yeah.
have a legislation that guarantees issues of gender. And of course, gender is not about men and women. I mean, gender refers to in either party, whether men, and it's not just women. Gender is not women. And I think that is why we find ourselves in the situation that we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
And I think because we have left that issue, we can maybe leave it there. But I think the issue of what are people require, this issue of public education, legal, constitutional, legislative, public education on what is the role of a women-led MP, senator, governor, MCA. Those things you find are still not very clear on the ground. That needs to 50, 60 years almost heading to after independence.
Yeah.
We need to take that issue of educating our electorates very seriously, right. as we move on. But on the issue that plays on the Mount Kenya politics, I can assure you, most of these meetings that you find from where I sit are sometimes led by either personal interest. I want to call a meeting and express my interest in the succession to Uhuru Kenyatta. There has been no formal, what you may call a formal Mount Kenya meeting of all leaders.
Okay.
All leaders meeting to succeed Uhuru Kenyatta. In our culture, we don't succeed somebody arrive and somebody who is still sitting on the seat. Because for now, a leader is the interest to help our people recover from the effects of COVID and economic retrogression, or is it to succeed 2 years down the line? Because the government can do too much in 2 years. You can so much in a country as opposed to politicking over who succeeds, and already a sitting president who you have not even listened to, who has not said I'm going anywhere. Because in terms of succeeding Mount Kenya politics is not the same thing as the presidency of the country. I think those are two different things. There's the headship of the Mount Kenya community, and there is now the national succession, which is not a Kikuyu or Lugema, or it's not a Lugema affair. That is a national issue.
All
so
right.
I think we need to separate the two. That I have, and I've said it very, very openly.
Yeah.
We should focus on helping the nation, our country, our people, region. I chair the governors forum. We should focus on helping our people recover economically. Even as we look at the 2022, which in politics is very far away. I know people are worried about what is going on now. You'll be shocked what will be happening 6 months
down after that. All right. Well, they say safari ya kesho funganywa leo, mheshimiwa, if I can loop in some bit of Swahili, and maybe just maybe that's why this conversation. And I mean, we've seen some of the leaders speaking, confidently that the Mount Kenya region needs to fix its house in order, otherwise they're going to be rooted out. I mean, every other time the conversation is about a regional, and it's ethnocentric, and it's pretty much unfair to note that, but. Just to ask you this question, do you suppose then that, or are you in agreement with the likes or the few who argue that President Uhuru Kenyatta is too young to exit the stage?
You know which stage? I think the question is which stage.
The politics. Okay, well, not really the political. Okay, well, which stage are you referring to now in this case, or which stages are we looking at?
Or is it the headship of the community?
Okay.
Those are two. The one for the nation.
Yeah.
As of now, the constitution is very clear.
It's clear.
The president himself has come out and talked himself. What his interests are in terms of the future presidency of this country and his interests. He himself has talked about it. We have seen in other countries like Rwanda, presidents refusing to exit and continuing to sit in as president. So I think we should respect what Uhuru has said about his interests at the national level.
Yeah.
But in terms of headship of the Mount Kenya people, that's a totally different issue. I think it would be foolhardy to go on campaign to succeed. Because that belongs to the people of Mount Kenya, the entire Gema community.
Okay.
Would have to see. I think for now we are focusing on uniting our people to think together, especially economically. We are Besha people. For us we like to make money for so for our economies. We are, the politics will come, and I can assure you when it comes, you have seen since independence, we always tend to speak with one voice. We may dissent one here and there, but ultimately we speak with one voice, and I can assure you it will not be different.
Mheshimiwa, you've been very strategic and elusive on that particular one. Yes, Ben,
no, I would like to indulge him.
Yes.
You know, Mheshimiwa is like a father to me.
All right.
In terms of age, and in our Kikuyu culture, being one of them, I need to be very careful in how I speak to him.
Yes.
But there are things I would like to say. Around 1960s, 1976, 77, 78, the late Kenyatta did ask the Agikuyu and told them, you know, I'm not going to be alive forever. And that time is going to come when I'm going to exit the stage.
Yeah.
Why don't you people go and put yourselves together and come and say that we have decided to go under the leadership of so-and-so, so that we can have one voice as a community. And you can remember the likes of Jonjo saying that it's wrong to even imagine that a president can die. Because he did not want people to sit down and discuss the possibility of a post-Kenyatta Kikuyu entity.
Right.
And unfortunately, it did happen that he did pass on, which is natural. And the Kikuyu were left without a leader who was like, this is the main person we can have. And they started fighting even in regions and saying, oh, you can't go past Chania and so on and so forth. That was a huge mistake we made at that point in time. And I would like to beg of the leadership that is there right now. There is nothing wrong with sitting with the blessings of the president to say and agree that as Kikuyus or as the Gema community or as the Mount Kenya people, we feel comfortable with a leadership of so-and-so post the Kenyatta rule. The reason why William Samoei Ruto is making such serious headroads into Central Province is not because of any other thing. It's because sometimes when the shepherd appears, like maybe the shepherd is going on retire, people always have, you know, Kenyans have this mentality of we need to be shepherded. And they have always felt like if we are not being shepherded, then we will go to where there's a shepherd who appears to be a strong shepherd who promises us of shepherding us tomorrow. I do not subscribe to Tangatanga. I have to make that very clear. But I need to beg the Agikuyu people, the likes of the Excellency Governor who is sitting here right now, that it's a high time that we accept to have this conversation. And it's a high time that we accept to say, no, let us face it head on, that post-Kenyatta, there will be a need for a leader for the Gikuyu community, and there will be a need for a political kingpin who will bargain on behalf of the Gikuyu community. Let us not shy away from having a leader right now and making a decision that is firm today for the sake of tomorrow.
Mheshimiwa Kadiri, you know, like reacts to the same. And it's evident that someone from your region has spoken. And truth be told is that this is the tone that is there across. We cannot shy away from that. So when you as leaders come out to probably overlook this or dispute this or try to place mud on this, I mean, what is left of the people who are looking up to you to chart the way forward?
Linda, I agree entirely with Mr. Kinodia, and he has used two words. If you remember very clearly, he said in 1967, the late Kenyatta told his community. Then he has said the leaders of Mount Kenya must sit with Uhuru Kenyatta, or with the blessings of Uhuru Kenyatta, and chart the way forward. And what I'm saying is that we have adequate time to do exactly that. We should not lose focus on developing our communities economically. If you go to the ground right now, people are asking for 500 shillings to feed their family. 500 shillings to feed a family. If I show you my text on the phone, send me 1,000, send me 500, send me 200, I slept hungry. This is what, if we now start engaging, then you know how that is sometimes it can become. And we are as governors and leaders in Central, of course we don't have to say how we are talking, but I can assure you we are talking. We are in consultation with our president, and ultimately I'm sure these things will become public. Not everything is done on on the politics of the media limelights.
Yeah.
Some things are done overtly, others are done overtly, others are done semi-overt,
Right.
covert.
So you've acknowledged that the conversations are there.
There are lots of
So whatever it is that we are being treated to is just, a cover-up of so much that is happening
You're
underneath.
just pudding. What you are seeing is just pudding.
Uh-huh.
You have not seen what the kitchen.
All right, so evidently the people of Mount Kenya should not be worried. There's going to be, a candidate who's going to be front, not necessarily a candidate, but a character who's going to be considered as the key figure and, would come in handy to ensure that they fully represent the Mount Kenya region.
It is in terms of occupying the position, if who exits that I can assure you, nobody can leave that to chance or to vacuum. Even the president himself has pronounced himself that he will also be making moves. As a politician, you can't expect him to be responsible. Just exit and leave a fair situation in there. And you see that it's not just for the Kikuyu community or the Mount Kenya Gema community. But we only talk about Mount Kenya. It's not just Kikuyu. That is Embu and Meru and Tharaka Nithi and other counties, that form the block. Even other communities, you have seen what is happening in the Rift Valley. There are those opposed to whoever wants, to be leader. They want to go to Nyanza. There are also issues go to Coast. All communities are putting themselves together to see what is their stake at the national stake.
Oh yes, we appreciate the fact that we are an ethno-majoritarian community and country, and we subscribe so much into what is within ourselves, ethnic groups and all that. And as many would have argued, there's nothing wrong really with celebrating and, identifying yourself with where you're coming from. But reality is that that kind of politics has not been good for us, has not been healthy for us. We've seen a lot of intolerance that culminates from this politics of, tribe, politics of ethnicity and all that. Just when we have these conversations and when we see our leaders having these conversations under the water, in regards to what it is that, of course, their community is going to get out of the stake that is there to be shared. Just when are we going to outgrow this aspect? Just when are we going to speak of a united Kenya? A Kenya that is going to be, free of tribalism, free of ethnicity, free of pointing of fingers that you come from this region and I come from this particular region and so you cannot enjoy this and all that.
I'll tell you this, we are heading there. In fact, and indeed, we are almost there.
Okay.
It's our politicians who are still at the tribal cocoons. I'll tell you for the following reasons. In 2002, when Emilio Mwai Kibaki, His Excellency, became president for the first time in this country, about 6 million votes were cast. In 2013, we had about 9 million votes being cast. No, 2007, the very contentious elections, where each got about 4 million votes, and then even Kivuitu said he does not know who won the election. And it goes on. When you talk about 2013, we had about 12 million votes cast. And now we had about 19 million votes cast. It goes to tell you that the bulk of the increment in votes from 2002 to 2017, the last elections, is not older people who have started registering for votes that had not voted. It's a younger generation of people who were born in Jerusalem, Nairobi, Kangemi, Wapi, who do not even speak their mother tongue in the first place. Younger people who are even ashamed to speak there, which I think is not a good thing. But in public, they don't even want to speak their mother tongue. They don't even want to speak their mother tongue to their mothers. And now if you realize that the difference between 2002, which was about 6 million votes when Kibaki first became president, to 2017, which is about 19 million votes, it tells you that there's an increment of 13 million voters who are thinking and behaving in a manner likely to suggest that they don't even care what their mother tongue is or where their home village is. And then we have politicians going all over saying, nyinyi wa Kisii, nyinyi wa Jaluo, nyinyi wa Maragoli, nyinyi wa Bukusu, tunataka kupige kura namna hii. And they are forgetting that come 2022, there will be another voter registration. And there might be another increment of another 4 or 5 million people who do not subscribe to the notion that I am Kalenjin, I'm Kikuyu. They don't even speak their mother tongue anyway. They go to institutions of learning from primary school all through to college, and they are not even happy to speak their mother tongue. So when you start thinking that way, and that's why I say change will come with our generation. I will go to the campaign and I will know these people are not even happy to be called by their tribes. and they are not even happy to associate themselves in that way.
Yeah.
So we need to start changing the way we are arranging our campaigns. And that's why I'm worried when I see people moving around this country all over the place in marketplaces and talking to people and referring to them as Nyinyi wa Kisii, Nyinyi wa Bukusu. And these people, the bulk of them are in their 20s. These are people who were born 1990 and above. Yeah. They are probably not even speaking that Bukusu, but they have a Bukusu name. So when we start thinking that by 2022 there is an increment of 5 million, and I can tell you, any young person in high school today is probably not speaking their mother tongue. So there's an increase of 5 million people who are not ready to be associated with their mother language and who do not think as tribes. In fact, their best friends, like my son is having a sleepover in the house, and he's invited 2 friends. I'm Kikuyu, one is Kisii, the other one is Luya. Those are his 2 best friends. Now amelala kwangu for 2 nights. So I can tell you our politics will change so much. When my son is voting, and a Kisii boy vies, he will not even see that. He'll see this is Fabish. He's my friend. They'll vote for him. So we need to change that, because it's the old leaders who are still in that mindset. I can tell you my generation has left, and they need to think.
All right, and so much fear is being instilled on different communities when we see this kind of shift. For instance, let's just take a scenario of what is happening within the Jubilee Party. And then there's Tanga Tanga, and then there's Kieleweke, and within the Jubilee Party is the DP who's not coming from Central Region, and there's some leaders from Central Region who are acting like they are, backing the DP, of course. I am saying acting because Madam Anne Waiguru, Governor Anne Waiguru, at some point in time, he said you can only rent a Kikuyu. So I will want to assume that, at least the DP has managed to rent them for a short time. But this is bringing a lot of distaste to the mouths of numerous other leaders from the Central Region. And it's not just this, also in matters, the Western Region, some of them backing the DP, and other leaders within the Western Region sort of feel like, what, you're going against what our community should do. So in such a scenario, then, how are we able to say that we're going to officially embrace this shift? Governor.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You raised a very important issue, the issue of tribes and ethnicity and politics in Kenya.
Yeah.
And I think I listened to what Lawyer Kinothia talks. I listened to what he said, and I think the issue is much deeper. Because ethnicity, because of how you speak or whether you exist in town, in Nairobi town, and you can have friends from Kisii and so on and so forth. That will not address the issue of ethnicity in this country. Ethnicity is recognized when, in the sharing of national resources, there is a deliberate shift to favor some communities or some people because of their tribe, because of their ethnicity, or because of those who sit in those institutions. And I think that's where the problem exists. We have already ethnicized our counties. If you go to any county, I can assure you, in a county, you find majority of the workers there are tribal, are communities from those, officers from those communities. They can sometimes even handle public business in vernacular, which was not there before the revolution took place. And this is where the date is in this country. We are ethnicizing institutions, ethnicizing counties, ethnicizing resources. It's a high time we had a national debate and discussed, did we intend devolution to tribalize this country? Or should we force the 30% dictate that in the cabinet, in the civil service, in the counties, 30% or 40% must come from other communities in Kenya, so that you can have a national dialogue. You have seen students invited to some areas of this country and they refuse to go. Even these young people, they say we will not go there because of these communities. Fine, yes, politicians have used it to their advantage, to leverage their numbers, but it goes much deeper. Even among professionals, you find that interviews takes place. We interview these communities, but I'll take this community because it is my community. And so this issue of bringing resources to the counties, much more, and then making sure that the counties also embrace other communities as a law in the constitution, demand that these communities also work in Nyandarua, in Kisii, get Nyandarua working in Kisii and in Mombasa. And I think this is where we need to start institutionalizing nationalism and patriotism in this country. But just to leave it to the young people who are able to work together. When it comes to the votes, you have seen they also vote with their parents. Because they went for an interview, they were left out because those who are sitting on the panel belong to this community and they chose a young person and refused the number one because he was a Kisii and took because maybe the panelists came from. I think this is a very, very serious issue. Counties have become tribal enclaves. These are issues that should be discussed openly and on the table. But on the issue you raised, I think we need to be very careful with the statements we make as leaders. This country is still very, very fragile, even in terms of ethnicity. The solution to minimizing ethnicity in this country lies in each and every one of us. The youth provide the future, yes. The greatest hope is the young people who do not care which language I speak. Some of our children don't even know how to speak or say Kikuyu or Kisi or Doru or whichever language, and they would want to see a unified country. But we have returned them. We have always gone back to our tribal cocoons, especially during elections, and hyped ethnicity. And I think that's where we need to really work out. In Jubilee, we need to look for a way of getting everybody on board. People working together. I know it is easier said than done, but I think we must be careful how we talk about other leaders, because all of us are Kenyans and we belong to this country, and we should look for ways. When we differ, we should differ on ideological issues, not on ethnic issues, but on maybe ideological stances. And I think it's a very challenging debate. I don't want to pretend that I have solutions to it.
All right. Jubilee is really a house in a mess, and as you, of course, weigh in on the same, do you suppose that the DP is charting his way out of Jubilee Party?
Thank you very much.
Right.
You know, I was listening to His Excellency the Governor, and I'm happy because he doesn't know we share a name. My middle name is Doita.
Okay.
So we share a name. Na tutafuata tujue mahali majina zetu. Yeah, because Kenodia is my father.
Yes.
Yeah, so now the issue of the DP is a very painful issue to think about as a nation. And the reason I call it a painful issue is because at the point of having, just immediately after the election, we were two nations living in one.
Right.
The Raila faction had gotten to the point where they were doing things like resist, changing SIM cards, and we didn't feel like we were one nation. And I can assure you, even traveling to certain parts of this country, you'd had to think about your ethnicity and where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And the handshake was a magical thing. And my feeling was that the DP should have been excited about the fact that it is now possible for the both of them. Because when we elected Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, we elected him together with William Ruto. So he should have viewed it as an opportunity for both of them to very easily be able to govern this country. Because with Raila being out there in the dark, this country had become ungovernable. Yes, you would use force and what, but sometimes it's easier as a man, even in your own house, when you persuade your wife to think in a particular direction as opposed to forcing her to do things the way you'd want to do, because she'll do them out of the fact that you probably have the monopoly of force in the house, but not because she has chosen to do so. And the fact that Raila willingly and Uhuru willingly came together and shook hands should have been something that should have excited the DP.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the advisors of the DP, and I'll say without fear, people like Kipchumba Murkomen started telling him, this is spoiling your 2022 chances. But for crying out loud, we were only in 2018. And what we need is a cohesive nation moving forward. So Raila having come close is a good thing. And what the DP should have done is embrace that and realize that there is no competition that happens between now and 2022. And that's why I'm asking, he's going all over the country campaigning. What are you campaigning for? Even if we gave you all the votes right now and put in a basket, where would you take them? There is no election. The US is 40 days to the election. We still haven't seen rallies. We'll see them maybe 20 days to the election. We have a whole 2 years to go. What is he campaigning for? So he is the reason why Jubilee is wrecked. And mind you, there is no Kieleweke without Tanga Tanga. Kieleweke came because Tanga Tanga was there. They were moving around the country. And you know, if somebody comes and opens a bridge on this side using a green tractor, they forget after some time. They come to the other side and open the same road using a yellow tractor.
Was it not with the blessings of the president, honestly?
Not necessarily. I mean, why would the president send you to go and open a road from this side and then open from the other side? I don't think Uhuru is like that. So this kind of politics, unfortunately, has messed up the DP. It is good to be ambitious, but sometimes too much ambition breaks a man. It is his own ambition that is breaking him. I think he realized, I wish he realized, what it would have taken for him to support the Jubilee agenda and support the president and work with him and wait, and then around 2021 start asking questions like, do we still have a deal? Then maybe people would see an element of sincerity.
Okay.
But when, and you know, you also do specialization, and that's why I like how Matiang'i came into government, because Matiang'i now is given a very special role. He's told, you help us run government. The DP is very good at launching projects. So he specializes. Let him continue launching projects, and you continue implementing the government agenda.
All right.
So I do not shy away from saying that the Jubilee Party is where it is right now because of personal greed. If people had waited for the right time, because there's right time for everything, then this country would not be where it is.
All right, so just what ails the Jubilee Party, Governor? Is it the DP? Is it the President himself? Is it Right Honorable Raila Odinga, who came on board, of course, on the handshake? What exactly ails the DP, the Jubilee Party? I mean, while many would have argued that it's because of his numerous campaigns. Also, evidently, he said that there's been lots of, shots fired, political witch hunt against him. And, well, again, one would be tempted to argue that, well, there's some bit of truth in what he says. So what exactly ails the Jubilee Party?
No, I think I take over from where left without agreeing with him or disagreeing with him.
Okay.
And say, 2 years to elections is a very distant future. That I can assure you. If you remember, the Kibaki took just 6 months.
Yeah.
And the game was done. Nothing stops another torsion. Just 6 months before 2022.
Okay.
And the whole scenario. Then number two, these issues of succession and legacy, institutionalization and management are very tricky issues. If you don't get it right, and you are possibly, and maybe a vision overtakes you, that could be very, very damaging. I managed the succession in Blue 2013. I can assure you it is not easy.
Yeah.
It is very complicated for any politician. Your advisors make you or break you. Personally, what I would advise, and I don't say I've advised, but what because the two leaders are my friends, Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, and of course PM Raila Odinga work together very closely in the Nusu Mkate when on the public service. I wish Deputy William Ruto had just focused on the 4 pillars, just implementing the 4 pillars, championing the cause of development in this country, helping Kenyans recover. I can assure you this leadership would have been handed over to him almost on a silver plate. I think the fact that people see divisions between the two is what is complicating the succession mathematics and equation. That is a very dicey area too. I think only history will show how events. But there's still a lot of time between now and next year. Dick is a politician. He's an intelligent politician, and he can always, he can always, put his politics with wiser people. I think that's what I was. Maybe wiser people and play his politics, his mathematics well. And there's chance in politics. You never give up. There's always chance to admit your mistakes and take a different route. It is possible, or you can take your course and leave it to fate.
All right. Why is it always that shots are fired against him, as if he's the only one who's politicking? I mean, we've also seen other leaders. Right Honorable Raila Odinga himself is politicking out there. KANU has been traversing different parts of the country. We've seen, leaders from the Western region politicking, even as we still continue to battle with COVID-19. Why is it that it looks so bad when it is the DP that is also out there, trying to front his agenda to the people of Kenya? And looking at that, then, what does it mean for him? Are there likelihoods that indeed he's going to whip sympathy votes, as many have argued, because of the kinds of battles that are meted against him or upon him?
I think the reason why he's the center of focus is because of the factor of incumbency.
Okay.
He's in the presidency.
All right.
So he's already enjoying power. Others are in court. Those who are talking against him are talking from a cold position. He is right inside the presidency. He's a deputy president. His Excellency William Ruto is a number 2 in this country. So
he has argued that he's been, should change in a way. He's been, of course, left off the hook. He's not aware of what is happening in government. I mean, the latest we saw, That should have been on Friday or Thursday, when, of course, Jubilee declared that they're not going to front a candidate for the Msambweni by-elections. And, you know, he had preferred candidates.
Yes, that happens all the time. That happens all the time. And what Bonakilonze talked about. My advice would be he works with the president. If he works, you cannot stop a sitting president in a succession management. It would be suicidal to work against what you may call the inner state, apparatus. Even if you're inside and you appear to be fighting it, I think it would be a very risky move to take.
All right.
In this country, of course, the DP's position has been a fairly, is an office of turmoil.
Yeah.
It's how it depends. Life independence is just an office of turmoil and a lot of issues coming up. You can see. Look at what has happened to all the vice presidents in this country.
Okay.
I'm not saying that is the fate of Ruto. William Ruto. No, I'm sure he's a smarter. What I'm saying, he's a smarter politician.
Okay.
For me, from where I see it, not because I'm a creature of the bureaucracy in the past. I'm still a politician. I would work with the sitting president and see how to make it through to 22.
Okay.
Actually, my thinking is there was a party called Jubilee Asili, Sote Pamoja.
Yes.
I think this is a golden opportunity for them to field a candidate in Msambweni.
Okay.
I mean, they have an office.
Okay.
They appear to have support. If it's not just online support, I mean, it's a high time they just bite the bullet and have a candidate in Msambweni.
All right.
And then we can quickly move to court and say they are supporting.
They have preferred candidates.
And also, by the way, there's something that people are forgetting. If we were to follow the law the way it's supposed to be, the DP is actually using state resources to campaign.
Yeah.
Because everywhere he's going, he's on state security, state everything. He has an undue advantage over every other person. And there's nothing as horrible as having an undue advantage over every other person. For a period of 5 years, you've been using state helicopters, state bodyguards, state everything. Paka ile lunch unakula ni ya state. And the people against whom you want to campaign for the same seat have to use their own resources. They are not able to get Kenya Pipeline helicopters. And I must commend the president for taking the helicopters where he has taken them. Because it's gotten to a point where it was not a level playing field. That's why you see, like in the US, and if we were to follow that model, because the bulk of our constitution is inherited from that, especially the presidency, the presidency is a unit. And that's why you cannot become vice president in the US and then become president.
Right.
Because you have enjoyed the presidency itself. And so and that's why you see it's not possible for Obama to go with his deputy and then the deputy wants to become president immediately. Because then what you're doing is you have an undue advantage. You are able to use the office and state resources and the publicity that comes with the office of the deputy president, which gives you a very huge undue advantage over everybody else to go for the seat. Then it will always be unfair, because then people will just choose to become deputy president for 10 years and then president for 10 years, which means you have enjoyed the presidency for 20 years.
Okay.
So that's the thing. But one last thing I'd want to request, because I know we are almost running out of time.
Yeah.
I would really request that I have a short phone call after this with His Excellency the Governor, because he's one person I've always wanted to meet and see. And I'm very happy to see him here now, my namesake. So the request too on air. Your Excellency the Governor, after this, we need to have a 1-minute phone call. Yeah.
You can give me my number.
I will certainly do that, Mheshimiwa. Now, that aside, the Huduma number is now the conversation that we are having today. And yes, the 2022 official battle cry, when they talk of a scenario where, yes, elections are going to be rigged based on the Huduma number. And after Kenyans queuing for days and days and troubles and all that, they still hold, some of them actually have lost, what do we call this, the waiting card, or the sleep, the small sleep and all that. And then officially, there's this talk that we could, again, be treated to the same. Governor, what do you say about the Huduma number processes?
One, I'm not averse to technology. We began the journey on the integrated approach to legislation of Kenyans. I mean, having a singular number for each and every Kenyan. But I think it's a journey that must be traversed very, very, very carefully.
Yeah.
It's an issue of national security. It's an issue of national interest. It is not a local issue, it's an international issue. If you say Kimembia Loita Kimemia is a Kenyan. It should be known across the world that this is really a Kenyan, and the numbering system, the technology that we are adopting is internationally recognized and integratable. So I think we need a national debate on this issue, and we also need to bring in local and international partners to help benchmark and come up with the best model that can be able to bring in an acceptable integratable system in terms of registering our people. I don't think it should be left to a ministry or to a minister or to two people fighting over each other. This is a national debate, a national issue, and it borders on national security. That's what I would like to say. You cannot. It is not a boys joke that you throw stones at each other to Anjani. It is a very, very important issue. I think it's being trivialized. It requires national and international validation, so that you by the time you say this is the number for Wakili Kinuthia, then it is Linda. It is acceptable, and nobody can goof or we start hearing about breaking through systems and the number and somebody else has that number. I think it's a very, very important issue that we should handle very, very, very carefully, in the national interest.
All right, and we'll talk about that, very crucial. It's national interest, but we also have some politicians that are selling this, I don't want to call it propaganda, but they are fronting this agenda that, there are likelihoods that the Huduma number was doctored, first of all, to help steal votes in 2022. And this is something that culminated over the weekend. And we all acknowledge the fact that, indeed, the Huduma number came with lots of controversies. So when we're talking about this, what does it speak, and what does it tell the people of Kenya, and what is this going to instigate?
Okay, number one, an allegation is as good as the person who is making the allegation.
Okay.
So I pity the William Ruto camp, because some of the things they say honestly just look like them. You see, the brightest and senior-most person in the William Ruto camp is William himself. Then all the other people are below him. And there's a huge limitation as to how far they are able to think. I wish they had a bigger source and pool of people around them. You see, when you see like His Excellency the President, some of the people surrounding him are like Francis Kimemia, who is older than the President himself. And now when you look at William Ruto, some of the people who are making noise about a Huduma number being used for an election are first-time MPs who have never been re-elected, so they don't even know whether they're going to be re-elected again.
Okay.
Look at Ndindi Nyoro. Ndindi Nyoro is making so much noise. Huyu kijana ameingia kwa politics jana. He's not even 3 years in politics. Who is he to advise the nation? When you look at some of the people who are surrounding the DP and talking about things as big as Huduma numbers, they've just joined parliament. I think they're even still struggling to understand standing orders. When you are going for an office as big as the presidency, you need people who are older than you, people who are wiser than you. Now you go to Western Province. The people advising the DP about Western Province and how the Huduma number is going to be used to rig elections in Western Province, the lead person is Boni Halwale, who could not defend his own seat. He could not secure his seat again. Now, if this is the person you're counting on to deliver that place to you, and he's telling you you're not going to get Western votes because Huduma number is going to be used to rig you out. Look at, welcome to Kambani here. There is Mudhama. Mudhama lost his senatorial seat. The people of Ukambani rejected him. He's advising him and telling him Huduma number itatungua kuiba kura za Ukambani, because he knows he cannot deliver the Ukambani votes to the DP. So let's be honest with one another. Huduma number is a neutral number. It's like your mobile phone number. What you do with that number is what makes it either good or bad. So let us have a Huduma number. Let it have the functions that it's supposed to have. Then now let's come up with legislation to protect the use of the Huduma number. But let us not start fighting the Huduma number. And history has proven to us, the people who so badly fought the implementation of this constitution and took us into a campaign saying no, that this constitution should not be implemented, are the people who are saying that we should not change the constitution through BBI now. The people who went around this country saying that yes, 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 to petition 2010 constitution are the ones who are taking us on the BBI journey, saying that we need to change this constitution. I can assure you, come 2022, the people who were fighting Huduma number will probably be the same people who will be telling us that it must be pegged to the voters' card. So let us do what needs to be done. A development agenda should never be mixed with political emotions. If someone feels that, you know, for example, in Coast Province, these people are depending on some very interesting lady to deliver the whole of Coast Province.
Yeah.
And you know, you can look at her and tell her she can't deliver Coast Province to you. And so the only thing she can give to the DP is what? Huduma number itatumiwa kuiba nini? Kura. Because how do you deliver Coast Province to him?
Anyway, Kenyans are in a way are subscribing to this ideology, and reality then is that it raises the need and concern for us to have conversations as to whether there's need for more sensitization, there's need for more civic education to be done revolving around the Huduma number. Because let's face it, not most of the Kenyans have traveled abroad to even know that you know, there are different countries that have the numbers, the national service numbers and all that. So how much more needs to be done to the people of Kenya so they could really understand what the purpose of the Huduma number is? And when we're talking about a scenario where, of course, the first phase is, I mean, whatever happened is still not clear, and then Kenyans have to be treated to another scenario that costs lots of money, that costs, you know, lots of controversy. Just how much needs to be done so at least Kenyans can gain the confidence on the need of having the Huduma number? Mheshimiwa.
I think very, very simple. Just localize the debates. Localize these debates in the counties, take it to the wards, take it to the Nyumba Kumi, explain to Kenyans what is this Huduma number all about. So
should we forgive the government for the first mistake that they have done, and now they're talking about another phase of it?
Not forgive. I think we should it's a good initiative for a government that wants to introduce technology in the management of this, you know, public business. I think we need to applaud the Kenyan government for embracing technology as a way forward. And you see, we are not the only country that has an integrated number, personal number per individual, and that you use wherever you go, whether it's passport, driving license, voter card, whatever. The issue is to make sure that it is credible. It is the whole thing is credible. You can think that it will work for you, only for it to work against you. There are things you don't gamble with. You cannot gamble with a personal number in any nation. I think it would be almost reckless, almost national betrayal. So I can assure you, if this debate comes to the counties, as governors, we can be able to market it to the people. And Kenyans have no issue. You know, once they understand something, it is politicians who are trying to politicize the whole issue. Either they didn't get their stake in it, or they have their own fears. I think we should let technology take its own course and be able to, in a case we have always had a number called ID number. What is different?